All right, PoA, here's part two. We have the situation. I'm not going to read it out loud, but you're going to have to take a second to read it. So if you haven't yet, pause the video. Otherwise, nothing I'm about to say makes sense, okay? So pause it now and read it. That was your pause time. Okay, so we're back. All right, so analyzing the situation for these four things, I try to make it obvious what they were. You might have to go back and kind of reference your notes. But let's talk about the planning part. Well, planning is all about knowing and thinking about what to do ahead of time, and Rick clearly did this. Instead of just jumping in and studying without thinking, he actually had a very set thing he wanted to do, and here it is. He wanted to study for 1 hour leading up to the test, 30 minutes of organizing, copying notes, and then 30 minutes of practicing problems, which is a grand idea. But what it does show is that he knew what he wanted to do before he started doing it. The planning step is one of the most important parts of the metacognitive process. I'll be really honest with you guys. Like I spend most of my time while problem solving just planning. And in fact, some people come up to me while I'm in my room and I'm doing kind of this in my head planning, and they're like, "Are you sleeping? Are you just sitting there staring at the ceiling?" My answer is, "Ha ha ha," and because I don't understand. But what they really need to understand is that I'm just thinking about what I want to do. I'm running the scenario in my head. I'm thinking like, what was the best way to approach planning this lesson, or what I need to create for my next class, or how I'm going to talk to my next class. Planning is one of the most, by far, one of the most important steps in all of the metacognitive processes. Let's talk about monitoring. You guys see Mr. Bostic or I monitoring every day. Like when we're walking around, tapping our iPad and giving you guys class dojo points, that is us purely monitoring you guys. Monitoring is nothing more than paying attention to all the details of what's happening while you're actually doing it. And Rick does this as well. He does this kind of in an interesting way. He's keeping a timer on his iPad set to go off 30 minutes at a time. That's his monitoring. So that's the way he can ensure that he is studying for the amount of time his plan actually entailed. Otherwise, he might drift, he might go somewhere else, he might watch some TV, he might only do it for like 10 minutes at a time. But that's how he's actually accomplishing the monitoring step. Let's talk about evaluate. Evaluate TID. I made it past tense on purpose because you're supposed to do this afterwards. So he does a kind of interesting evaluation. He's doing his evaluation in two parts. He's actually doing a summary of his notes and then asking himself, is that a good summary or not? That is a pure evaluative step. It's him saying, well, now that I put in this hour and I've studied, did I actually get out of it what I needed to get out of it? In the end, he's saying, well, he's basically giving himself a little test. The last piece, and this is the one that we're probably most reluctant to do, is loop back. So let's say he does this summary, he looks at it and he's like, this is garbage, or I couldn't even finish it. Well, he's basically telling himself that he has to go back and go another hour of studying. He has to do this again. That's the loop back part. I think we have lots of examples of how this problem solving process is actually used. And if you can come with any of those, you have a good sense of what metacognition is. One way I always like to kind of think about what metacognition actually means is really just a way of thinking about thinking. Thinking about thinking while you are thinking. What I really mean by that term, and it's meant to sound intentionally confusing, is basically like you're aware of what you're doing and why you are doing it. Like if you're being metacognitive in your approach, um, you're you have a sense of the things that you do, and there's always a purpose behind them. So you are aware of what you are doing and why you're doing it. That's what metacognition really means. You're being aware. You're using these steps up here that we kind of highlighted. Um, and that's, like I said, that's really kind of what the metacognitive process is all about. All right. Okay, so let's, that's going to conclude part two. I'll see you guys in part three.